Welcome to the Love of the Star podcast. I'm Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105 through the Fan in Dallas, the radio flagship home of America's team. Joined as always by former Super Bowl winning NFL scout Brian Broaddus. You can now hear him Monday through Friday on 105 through the Fan as co-host of the G-Bag Nation, 2 to 7 p.m. Central. You can also hear him as the pre- and post-game co-host on the Dallas Cowboys radio network. Brian, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, Robert. Thank you very much.
That was an interesting game. Cowboys win this one 54-19. Is that the least convincing 35-point victory you've ever seen, Brian?
That was crazy how that one went going down, especially after the drive that started the second half of the Cowboys, where they hold the Colts to a 3-and-out. They get the ball punted to them. Turpin fair catches it. They're on the 50-yard line, and I'm thinking, okay, now go take their will to compete. And you proceed to go 3-and-out with three of the worst plays you've ever seen, And so, I kind of felt like that game was still in the balance, that you were, allowing the Colts to hang around, where the Colts can be able to score enough points. It didn't appear that way, but were you going to be able to do anything offensively? Were you going to be able to do anything to put pressure on them? We talked about this a bunch, that the one way to beat the Colts was to continually score. Well, that's the way to kind of beat anybody, but especially this team, because they just don't score a lot of points. And you kind of saw why. It takes them so long to get into scoring position the way they play. Now, they threw the ball down the field. They made a couple of plays. They had a 19-yard run, which should have really been a gain of 4 if everybody just rallied to the ball and tackled instead of trying to bounce around there. And, I felt like that the Cowboys in that fourth quarter, when they got the turnovers, the offense came to life. Dak threw the ball, I thought, well at that time. They had some opportunities with the running game, and then you get the defense. And, we just all kind of felt, I know watching the game, that Matt Ryan was not interested in standing back there and holding the ball and letting this Cowboy pass rush come after him. Now, give Dan Quinn some credit. He said, listen, my pass rush is not getting home. I better bring safety help. I better bring a linebacker help. They did a really good job of confusing the Colts blocking scheme. They have some veteran guys up front, and they did a great job with those blitzes of not only hurting the blockers, the offensive linemen for the Colts, but also the backs on some of that blitz pickup stuff. But it was something I really didn't expect. I kind of felt like the Cowboys could score, but to score that many points, that was very impressive.
If you were on this team, if this was one of your Green Bay teams, for instance, back in the day, and you had just witnessed this game, and you saw the performance, and then you saw the scoreboard, which doesn't seem to equal up to the performance, would you come out of that feeling better or worse about it? Because one line of thinking would probably say, boy, that was not the performance you needed. Don't get comfortable in that scoreboard, because that is not representative of how you played football. And then the other line of thinking out there says, man, look, you didn't even give your best game of football, and you put 54 points up on the board. That's no fluky thing. How would you feel coming out of this one? And more directly, how do you feel the Cowboys feel coming out of this one?
I kind of feel like that, offensively, the Colts have got some good defensive players. Kwity Paye, DeForest Buckner, Ngakoue. I kind of felt like that they had some guys that could make some plays. I felt like they could attack Gilmore. They tried to attack Gilmore. He was in good position. He got the interception. I'd seen him in previous 3 games where it's kind of like, well, man, here's a guy that kind of gives it up, kind of gives up, the plays and stuff like that. I don't think it was pass.
I was not pushing you back, Brian.
I was just wondering. Yeah, I don't think it was pass interference. When you watch
the Dolphins,
I think he did a good job. He did a good job of cutting him off.
Contact or pass interference. He got right on there before the ball, though.
Yeah, well, he also got in. I think he cut Gallup off. I think it surprised Gallup how quickly that he was able to cut him off right there. I don't think it was pass interference, but I think there was some plays, though, that the Cowboys got away with as well with the calls. The penalties weren't as huge factor as we thought this crew might have. But to get back to your initial question, I felt like there were some good players on this Colts defense, but for them to move the ball like they did, once they were able to establish a little bit of a lead, I think that says a lot about the Cowboys and with Kellen Moore and Dak Prescott and this group when it came to the offensive line running the ball, shuttling guys in and out, shuttling backs in and out, shuttling tight ends in and out. You're seeing a lot of depth on this football team, both offensively and defensively, and that in itself is very impressive.
I thought this was your quarterback's worst game since he came back from the injury. Obviously, the worst game he's played this year was Tampa. That was awful. But since he came back from injury, I felt like this was the one. And statistically, it probably doesn't look quite like the worst. But to me, this was easily the one where Dak Prescott, I felt like, and everybody knows I'm a big Dak Prescott fan. I don't feel like Dak Prescott really made a damn bit of difference for you on Sunday. I don't think there were a lot of moments where it's like, oh wow, that was a great throw there, or whatever else. I mean, he had a couple nice throws. The back shoulder to Gallup was nice, but overall, I felt like, you know how we always had the line where we said we didn't feel like any of the games Cooper Rush won, Dak Prescott wouldn't. That to me felt like a game that with Dak's performance, Cooper Rush probably could have led them to a 54-point victory too. I felt like, because I just didn't see Dak really orchestrating anything yesterday.
Well, how many times have we seen quarterbacks they have 3 losses, 2 of the 3 losses, and really all 3 losses, the quarterbacks of the opponent weren't the reason why they won the game. Tom Brady wasn't the reason why they won against Tampa won.
Right.
You look at Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts wasn't the reason why Philadelphia beat Dallas. And let's be honest, Aaron Rodgers wasn't the true reason why Green Bay won that game. I mean, he had a nice tidy day, but the 3 quarterbacks in your 3 losses, that wasn't the fact that the Cowboys couldn't defend the run.
Yeah.
There were some big plays on 3rd down. There were some big drives, long drives. So yeah, sometimes you could get away with throwing for the amount of yards that Dak threw for, and still find a way if you're going to run the ball for 250 yards and get all the production out of the backs that you did with the touchdowns as well.
See, and that's the other interesting thing. I don't think the backs were. I mean, the backs were good yesterday. But it's interesting. The same discussion about, man, it really didn't feel like a 54-19 victory. Like when you watch the way they played, I was stunned to see the final tally was like 222 yards on the ground. It obviously you're just going by feel, but to me, like if I would have had to have guessed, I would have said, I don't know, they rushed for 130 yards or something. It was interesting in that the box score, the dominance in the box score just doesn't seem to match up totally, even though I think the running game was good. I don't think they struggled in the running game. It didn't feel like a 200-yard team rushing performance. It didn't feel like at times that, it was a 3-touchdown day from Dak Prescott. I thought the guys who really stood out as great for me, Brian, the first one, the very top for me yesterday was CeeDee Lamb. I thought CeeDee Lamb was great. And CeeDee Lamb, I don't know if it's Odell Beckham chatter or what has clicked. It may just be finally getting to work with his quarterback. It's year 3, it's clicking, and now Dak's back, and they've got a connection that they both really believe in each other, and they both really trust each other. But man, there's stuff CeeDee Lamb's doing in the open field, and that I think is separate from Dak Prescott, that just you have to explain away, as CeeDee Lamb is now reaching a certain point. Everybody who got worked up this past offseason when we talked about, hey, CeeDee Lamb still got to show some things, and you said CeeDee Lamb's a top-tier wide receiver. I hope now you see what the difference is, because this is a different football player in the last 6 weeks, I think.
Well, the thing about it looks like CeeDee Lamb from Oklahoma when we were all working on the draft. Mm-hmm. The ability, the run after catch, the movement, the motion, the finish, the physical toughness, the balance, the body control, all those things that we saw CeeDee Lamb do while he was playing at Oklahoma, you're now starting to see for the Dallas Cowboys. And I felt like that, if you look at him, offensively, I know we're talking about Lamb, but when you talk about feet and speed with the running backs,
yes.
29 carries, 168 yards,
Yeah.
3 touchdowns. That's why you get these individual performances, but you look at Lamb, Gallup, and now you get the two, with the two running backs and the way they were able to play. It doesn't. Dak Prescott doesn't have to be that guy, but you are starting to see what we all thought CeeDee Lamb could be coming out of college.
Yeah, absolutely. Really impressive. And again, it's another one of these, you see the game yesterday. A lot of times when you have one of these performances, you expect a loaded Micah Parsons box score. That wasn't the case. But you got some great contributions yesterday. I thought your safeties were really good. Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson, they were really strong yesterday. Deron Bland, both of those interceptions were incredibly impressive. Just in terms of the skill that it takes. The one where he went up for the first one, and then the second one where he wrestled it away from the receiver. I really feel like Bland is coming into his own. We know Anthony Brown tears his Achilles in this game. As much as people have been frustrated with him, that's tough. That's going to be tough to overcome. There's already starting to be a little bit of chatter that Kendall Sheffield, who's on the practice squad, could come up, play the outside, but he can also play inside outside a little bit, and that they could free up Bland if they needed Bland on the boundary, if they felt like they really needed somebody out there. If you can get Kendall Sheffield to play adequate in the slot, Brian, would you take Deron Bland out of the nickel at this point and put him on the boundary, given the struggles you've had out there? Or would you just say, look, Deron Bland looks comfortable. He played a really good game this week. He's had a couple good games. Let's not mess with a good thing. Let's just figure out what the boundary corner is and not move Deron Bland.
What I know about Kendall Sheffield is he's a very quiet kid. He is best in press coverage, and this is so he can jam and run. That's kind of his game. He struggles playing in off coverage or zone coverage. Doesn't have great instincts. He struggles with ball skills. He's a very good gunner on the punt team, from what I was told. But he struggled with his health. He always has like a hamstring issue, a calf issue, and it takes him a long time to recover. He's never gotten back, from what I heard, the flash that he showed during his rookie season. There's been scouts that have described him as a little bit of a heartbreaker. So we'll see. That's the former player. That's a little bit of a scouting report on the player. If you tell me, okay, fine, play a good guy that can get up on you, can press, can run with you, great. All those things are fine. If you're asking him to do something else, we'll see. But, and it's going to be about health with this kid. But he's been on the practice squad. He's been here. He's been available, and so we'll see. They obviously, Dan Quinn has done a great job of bringing guys in. Me personally, I feel like you need to continue on with Kelvin Joseph. And the only reason I say this is because Kelvin Joseph, has not played a lot of football. Okay. He hasn't. But Kelvin Joseph showed me something. And again, I take away what happened on Sunday with when he's running down the field and he just smashes into the returner and gets the penalty. Okay. That's not great awareness right there. But
let's be honest, you're probably going to get the knucklehead penalties every now and then from Kelvin Joseph. It's just It's kind of who he is right now.
It is who he is. But I think that Kelvin Joseph has not played a lot of football at LSU. He didn't play a lot of football at Kentucky. I think Kelvin Joseph needs to get work, needs to get reps. I think he can cover. I think he's quick enough. I think he's aggressive enough. You see a guy when he's in there, he's willing to tackle. There's guys he's willing to go in there and tackle. The same with Bland. You maybe playing these types of guys. We saw what happened. We saw what happened with Brown. It got to the point where I didn't even know Brown was healthy enough. He just didn't look like the same player. The Kelvin Joseph, he could give up big plays too, just like Brown did. But I have a feeling, though, he's aggressive. We'll see about the football, I'm not going to say the IQ, but like the awareness and stuff like that. Instinct. I think he just needs to get an opportunity in practice and go out there and play because he's capable. He's a capable player. Dan Quinn did not go to Lexington, Kentucky just to work out Quentin Bohanna. He didn't do that. He saw something in this kid, and I'm going to trust Dan Quinn's going to get him ready, just like he got Bland ready to play.
Yeah.
I'm going to trust him that now if it doesn't work out and you want to put in Kendall Sheffield there, please just kind of know what you're up against if, in fact, that's the route they go.
Just as we wrap up this segment before we get into a little either much awaited or much dreaded OBJ talk, depending on where your level is at in terms of your threshold for all the OBJ chatter. But Brian, anybody else you want to highlight really quickly as you thought just played really well on Sunday?
Yeah, I thought it was Tyler Biotis, just one of his best games. When you looked at the way that the Cowboys in protection, handling the twist stunts and things like that, I thought he did a really nice job. The running game, I thought he did an excellent job in the running game. It's not easy to deal, with those guys inside when you talk about Stewart, Buckner, those guys. I mean, it's a kind of an all-day task to have to take care of those guys. And I thought he did a really, really good job. I want to commend the wide receivers for the way they were able to block in the running game when I'm talking about the toss sweeps, the crack toss, whether it was Brown, Gallup, Lamb, everybody in the outside, those receivers coming down, sealing off guys, getting big linemen out in the space and letting them finish up those blocks. I thought that was really some pretty football. When you see the ball tossed, you see the corner captured, and a lot of that blocking started because a wide receiver who's been making catches all day all of a sudden decides he's going to block. I think that's something you have to be very, very proud of.
Now I'm curious. We talked a lot. We both I think dumped a lot on Tyler Smith, and not like hit him too hard. We just said it was a tough performance, short 3-day turnaround. He looked a little overwhelmed. Everything else. I don't think he was like the best guy on the line yesterday, but I thought he bounced back well. I thought he played okay. He had a nice block on the first big run of the day for Tony Pollard, the 17-yard one. He helped seal that. But overall, I thought it was nice to see Tyler Smith didn't appear to be in his head too much from the last game against the Giants. It looked like he bounced back okay.
No, and I think the thing with Tyler Smith is he needs a full week of practice. And let's be honest, the Giants are a big blitz heavy team. They kind of found out that they could bring the rush at him and he was going to short circuit a little bit. And I kind of felt like that, he needs all those practice days in order to completely digest the game plan and be ready to go. And again, I thought he broke it down a little bit because we talked about 3 games in 12 days. His body right now is saying, okay, Tulsa season's over. It's time to go do something else. But he's got more football left and he's got a playoff to worry about as well. So, hopefully whether he plays at tackle or plays at guard, he can continue to give them the quality play that he has throughout the season.
Really quick here, because we're already running long in the segment, but just curious, when Tyron Smith comes back at left tackle, if it was up to you, would you roll with Tyler Smith or Connor McGovern at guard for now?
Let me just be honest with you. I'm going to tell you what I think they're thinking. I don't think it's a slam dunk that Tyler Smith is going to be the starter at left guard. Excuse me. I think there's going to be we've seen these guys rotate offensive linemen, whether it's tackles, guards. We've seen them rotate these guys. We could very well see a situation where McGovern and Tyler Smith both are getting work as Tyron Smith is getting work at left tackle.
You're listening to the Love of the Star podcast. The Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, I know you don't want to have this talk. I'm tired of this talk. I think most of us are tired of this talk, and it's luckily, I think, finally coming to an end. I hope we have some sort of a resolution soon. But it is Odell Beckham Jr. week here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Odell Beckham Jr., we're recording this on Monday night, spent time at the Star on Monday, got looked at by doctors, I believe hung out with Mike McCarthy, talked to Jerry Jones, is going to the Mavericks-Suns game tonight in Dallas, where he'll allegedly be courtside with a few guys. And then tomorrow he'll hang around again and have a second day, which is in line with how he's visited these other teams. Giants, Bills, same sort of setup. It was a 2-day visit. So we should, in theory, have an answer soon as to whether Dallas wants to proceed or not. I know this has become incredibly complicated. We've played audio about it. We've talked about what Jerry's had to say, what Josina Anderson's had to say, Ian Rappaport, all these various people. It's a very cloudy, murky situation. Here's where I come down on this, Brian, is that I feel like if the cloudy murkiness has not been enough to chase away Jerry Jones yet, I don't know that same murkiness in person is going to do it for him. I feel like I think Jerry has really strongly in his mind committed to, I want to make this happen. It's not a guarantee he ends up here in Dallas. I'm not saying like it's 100%, it's already done. I think it's more likely than not he's here in Dallas because I just think Jerry Jones has fallen in love and thinks he's found his modern day version of the Charles Haley move.
Oh, you could very well be right about that. I think they've gone a long way down this road. I really, really do. And I like what you're saying about the Charles Haley move. The Charles Haley's move was just tremendous. That move, Sanders, Deion Sanders, those are players that you add that just are just complete difference makers. I just wonder if there's enough time for Odell Beckham to be a difference maker here. I would love to see him do it. I also wonder, though, their situation with the medical. Are they kind of saying, well, the knee is okay, and we're going to be able to get him ready in a couple of weeks? That'll be okay. And, we'll get him ready for the run against the Eagles and the Titans and the Commanders, and you get in the playoffs. Is it going to be worth it for the Dallas Cowboys, for the next 3 weeks for sure, and going on into the playoffs? And I'd love to see him do it. I'd love to see when teams make moves. I remember a time I talked about this with the Packers when we added Andre Rison, but that was at the midway point of the season. That was 8 games that he got to play.
Yeah.
I just wonder if the knee is actually in good shape, and is he going to be ready to go? And there might be a time where it's like, listen, the knee isn't ready and it's not in good shape, and we're going to have to work him in the next couple of weeks. You're only going to get him for so many games. And when is it worth it to go for these games? Sure, because Odell Beckham can do a lot of great things. I believe he can. But sure. I also think there might be a situation where they're looking at it and they're going, listen, we know where this knee's at. We probably don't like it a lot the way it is, but by God, we're going to find a way to make it work. And, that's going to be on the player. That's going to be on the team to make sure that they get the best benefit out of it.
I noticed something earlier today, Brian. I was just kind of looking over the injury history for Odell Beckham, and
it's pretty extensive. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's missed time with 5 injuries since 2017. Every single last one of those 5 injuries is an injury to his left leg. Yeah. It's a left ACL tear, left quad contusion, which that quad is also right there above the knee. Left fibula fracture, left ankle sprain. So it's everything on the left side. Do you think that's fluky, or do you think there's just questions about the durability of it? I mean, he's clearly had issues, whether it be spraining an ankle over there, or like I said, the quad, the ankle and the fibula, those are 2 things. You have a sprain, a couple weeks later you break it. The break was a little, kind of a freak injury in 2017. But then, you've got the quad and the knee and everything else that's involved in that. The fact that his last 3 injuries involve that structure, is that a concern for you?
Well, yeah, I think that, I say, yeah, and I say, you bring up an interesting point because tracking all the left side injuries, I wonder if a trainer or a doctor or somebody would have a really, really good answer to that. And that might be one of those things that if you're in the player personnel department, you would say, hey, listen, this guy's extensive injury history is all in that left leg. Is there something we're missing here? Is there something we could do to help him? Is there some type of machinery or anything that we could test him on, work him on, get it stronger? I don't know. It sounds like to me like a lot of terrible luck is really what it sounds like right now. But I don't know how you could not say, well, it's happened. It's actual fact. It's that left leg that's been giving him the problem. So I still do believe whatever team signs him, I believe that team is probably going to have to put some of their medical knowledge to work, but they're also probably going to say, we're willing to do this because of the player. And probably wouldn't do it for a lot of players, but for this player, I think that they'll kind of maybe turn away from it and say, okay, we're willing to make this happen.
Remember when the Cowboys had that stipulation in Gerald McCoy's contract that was very particular to the quad that he ended out tearing.
Yeah.
And so I mean I think it goes to show that Dallas's doctors are pretty good and they've got a
Yeah.
pretty good understanding of what is at risk into the future. So I will say this: if the Cowboys walk away from this, if they make the determination that they're walking away due to that it's a medical call, then what would be your line? Because I know there will be a ton of disappointed Cowboys fans who will feel like, this is just what they're saying. They're making this up. But to me, if the Cowboys draw a line and say the medical's not good, I think everybody should be out. I think you should trust Dallas's evaluation. So what would be your word to a Cowboys fan who's really frustrated when they hear, oh, the Cowboys are walking away because of a medical? Well, it was good enough for somebody else. Well, why couldn't it be good enough here?
Yeah, you're talking to a guy, and I've told this story before where our doctors in Green Bay failed Larry Allen on a physical,
Mm-hmm.
with the rotator cuff. And, you never want to see a player playing somewhere else that you had the opportunity to grab. But as you said earlier, this medical staff, I worked 14 years with these guys, with a Dr. Cooper, with working with Jim Maurer, Britt Brown. I mean, trainers, other trainers, doctors of the organization, Dr. Fowler. I mean, they've got some seriously outstanding doctors and medical staff, and some of the best specialists in the country that work here in Dallas that they send their players to. I would have to trust them. I just remember, being in Philadelphia too, where Jeremiah Trotter. I tell the story about Jeremiah Trotter. We drafted him in the third round. Linebacker. Everybody knows Jeremiah Trotter. He played Philadelphia for and played with the Commanders for a long time. And I remember a doctor telling me, he's like, Brian, I can't tell you if he plays 10 games or 10 years. I can't tell you that. So, and you get Jeff Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, say, listen, if we like the guy this much, let's do this. And Jeremiah Trotter had a really long career. So these are the things that kind of scare you a little bit. You want to go get the player. You want to go make it work. You want to trust your doctors, but you could also, when you bring that guy in, that medical staff is they understand where the player is at, but they're thinking like, okay, how can we prevent him from getting hurt again? And that's going to be the next measure. If Odell Beckham signs, I guarantee you're going to see him every single day with Britt Brown on those cords, trying to work and get himself right and ready to go. And but it's just one of those things that sometimes you just have to take that chance and see if you can make it work out.
If this gets done, and if it's something where, let's say, Odell Beckham Jr. tells Jerry Jones in this meeting, I don't think I can play this year. I'm good for next year, but I don't think I can play this year. Jerry has said all along, look, it's got to be for this year, and I understand that's what his position has been. But if they feel confident about him medically next year, and they're going to lose this year, do you think Jerry would stick to his words, or do you think standing there in front of him, Jerry would go, I got to add this guy. I know what I said, but I got to add this guy, and we feel good about 2023. I've got to do it. Or do you think that is a line in the sand for Jerry, where if Odell cannot go this year, he is not going for it?
I think that's a line in the sand for Jerry. I think that, and now if Odell were to tell me that, listen, I will play on a 2-year deal, but one of the years will be a vet minimum, and we can work it from there, kind of a thing, then sure, I'll get a jump on you. You can come on in, we'll rehab you, we'll do all this stuff, we'll get it all right. But if I really do, I don't even know why I'm even entertaining the thought, because Jerry Jones wants him to play right now. He sees what's going on in the NFC, the conference. He wants this player to help him win this conference and go to the Super Bowl.
Do you think, and I know we were chatting about this off the air, I know you tweeted it, suggested it, we kind of referenced it with CeeDee Lamb, but do you think that for all the receivers posturing about, not posturing, I don't want to say that, that's a bad word for it, for all the receivers talk and excitement about, we would love to add Odell Beckham here, we'd love to have him here, that there is still a natural competitive fire that kicks in when you talk about adding somebody to that group? Because it does seem like everybody's starting to click. Michael Gallup seems to be back to himself. CeeDee Lamb has taken his game up another level. It feels like it lit a bit of a fire. Is that just coincidence, you think? Or do you think that very well may have gotten their competitive juices going, just hearing all the Odell Beckham chatter like, boy, you need this guy because the receiving core is not good enough?
No, I think that clearly these guys have gotten better. Gallup has more confidence. Gallup's running better routes. That touchdown that he caught where Dak sprints to his right, that is just a busted play. And now all of a sudden you got Michael Gallup running from stationary guy across the field, and all of a sudden that ball is flying his direction. He catches it and he gets in. That's just him being an outstanding football player. CeeDee Lamb, we kind of felt like that CeeDee Lamb was going to be a guy that was capable of being a top, top 5, top 8 receiver in this league. Kind of felt like that he had that kind of ability. I think both these guys are really benefit from the offensive line with protection, a really good running game. Play calling's been pretty spot on right now, and you got a quarterback that's throwing the ball well. So I think that really it's not so much about CD or about Beckham coming in. Even though I tweeted about last night, I'm like, hey, it looks like that Lamb is trying to say, hey, there's no need to bring Odell in here. He's trying to keep him out of here. But I do believe that these guys are sincere when they say having Odell Beckham would be a good thing for them. I do think they believe that because, Bobby, you go in that locker room every day. I do feel like it's a very, very close locker room. And I think they would love to have a guy like Odell Beckham help them win games.
Absolutely. And I guess that I like I said, I don't want to make it sound like they're lying. I think they're absolutely serious. I just think that I feel like there's definitely a possibility that both are true, though. They do want Odell Beckham here. They do. But also at the same time, in the discussion of Odell Beckham, they're hearing a lot of people be critical of the receiver group isn't good enough. And they say, look, we want Odell Beckham, but we're going to show you we are good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
And when we perform at high level, I think, you've been around athletes for a long time. They will, a lot of these athletes will make things out of whole cloth that aren't even real adversaries just to give themselves an edge and just to give themselves a motivating factor. And so it wouldn't surprise me at all. I know you were being a little tongue in cheek with it, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's both, and that it is, they want Odell Beckham here, but they absolutely took some competitive fire from, there's a lot of outside noise about our core isn't good enough and we need somebody like this. Well, we'll show you we're good enough and we still want him. Yeah. You're listening to the Love of the Star podcast. The Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, it is now time to roll into our favorite segment of the week. It is our listener mailbag, where we turn things over to our dear, sweet listeners for their thoughts and their questions. I'm going to actually lead us off on our listener mailbag because I've not gotten a chance to ask you yet. I don't know if you've been able to dive in, but I'm going to kick it off right away. Have you gotten a chance to start on any players yet? I know you were playing on it, but did you actually get a chance to watch any college players yet?
Watched 10.
What?
Yeah.
Who's the best player you've seen so far?
I'll tell you what, the running back at Texas might be the best one I've seen. Seriously.
He's very, very good. And you know what my fear is? People aren't going to value the running back enough, and he's going to go on land.
Hell no. I mean, that's the thing about it is I will tell you this, and I regardless of the position, you watch him play, and people are going to. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this with my chest. This guy's got some Barry Sanders skill to him. Ooh. He really, really, really does. When you watch the balance and the control and the way he's able to move and adjust, his ability to catch the football and all that, I was super, super impressed with his ability to make plays. Now, what I'm doing right now, I've looked at Will Anderson, the edge from Alabama, Jalen Carter, the defensive tackle from Georgia. I think he is so, so difficult to block. Bryce Young is going to be a guy that is going to test you and because there's not a player you could ever compare him to because of how he looks, physically. He
Yeah.
looks very frail, very small, but the way he's able to move around, the smoothness that he plays with. Miles Murphy, the edge from Clemson, I'm
He's
telling you what,
very good.
he is. He
So
you
good.
can you cannot draw him. You cannot draw a defensive up any better than what Miles Murphy looks like. I'll tell you what. I think I like Christian Gonzalez, the corner from Oregon, a little bit better than I like Keely Ringo, the corner from Georgia. Peter Skoronsky, the offensive tackle from Northwestern, kind of like Paris Johnson, a little bit better out of Ohio State. I
Oh, we,
mentioned
we we might have a fight over that one during draft season. Just
which
let you know.
one, Peter Skoronsky.
I like Skoronsky a lot,
I'll tell you what, I there was some
and I
times
like
there.
Paris Johnson too.
I'll
But
tell you what, I found that, but Peter Skoronsky was a little bit more catch to his game. A lot of catch, and I didn't see a lot of punch. I didn't see a lot of sitting down. I think he's a good football player, but I'm interested. I know people have Skoronsky as the top guy, and I really do like. But I like, I like Paris Johnson a lot, and then Brian Breesy, the defensive tackle from Clemson. I mean, these Clemson's got some guys now. There's no question about that across that defensive line. But Anderson, Carter, I'll tell you what, that Carter is super impressive. But that Bijan Robinson at running back, when you hand him the ball or throw him the ball, he's got that ability where you're playing against him, you're holding your breath on the guy. I mean, you're holding your breath because you're thinking he's going to spin, he's going to cut while he's jumped with both feet off the ground. It's a position of running back. Hate on the position all you want. That kid right there is one of the top. I could say right now probably a top anywhere between a top five and a top five, top seven player right now for you in the country. I kind of think all those the edge rusher, the quarterback, and that defensive tackle probably go ahead of him. But don't sleep on that Bijan Robinson.
well, it sounds like you've your studies you've gotten to see some fun players though. It sounds like
I have.
a fun so far. I've got to dive in more. I've got to make my annual. I need to get you. I need to drag you out to Exos finally this year so that you can go watch these guys
Yeah.
with Briscoe. We got to catch
Yeah.
up on those guys and take a look at them.
Well, the thing I work at, it's funny because I got a kid that's at the University of Texas, and that's not my Bijan Robinson love for Texas. Surely not my love for you being a
Sure,
Texas grad.
yes.
But man, I tell you, when you got kids in school, you got to work about 7 jobs to make sure that they get everything they need, right? That's
Yeah,
the way it
yeah.
works. Yeah.
Yep, I hear you on that. It'll be off season. We won't have all
Hopefully
the.
we'll get
We'll
there.
free it up
Sounds good.
because this is off air conversation, but there's a lot of valuable stuff there, Brian. All
I
right,
know.
let's move on to the listener questions here. First question from Joey K, number 8: Is Donovan Wilson a Pro Bowl player, Brian?
No, he's not. But you know what? He's done a great job when it comes to how physical of a player he is. I love the fact that he's a willing hitter. He'll wrap you up as a tackler. I just kind of feel like there's a little bit of inconsistency there with him as a player. A little bit of some hot, a little bit of some cold. There's been times where the ball's bounced outside on him. He hadn't been able to get out and make a play. But I think the safeties as a whole played very well. Curse, Hooker. We've been waiting for Malik Hooker to have this type of game. Who knew you had to bring the Colts in, name him captain, then all of a sudden the ball starts going his way. But yeah, I think with Wilson, I think he's a good player. I wouldn't say he's a Pro Bowl player.
And I agree with you. I don't think Donovan Wilson's a Pro Bowl player, but I do think Donovan Wilson is the type of player you win with.
Super tough. That maybe not, maybe the out of bounds shot that he takes every once in a while. The sport, he is so aggressive, and he wants to hit you. He wants to knock the ball loose. He's emotional the way he plays. But yeah, I think there's some inconsistencies in his game, and I think that's what kind of holds him back at times.
Next question here from Mick. What will they do at running back next year? A healthy Zeke looked good last night. He's actually looked good a couple weeks now. I say he's more important than Pollard, as explosive as Pollard is. Can't sign him for too much. Brian, your thoughts? What would you do, and what do you think they'll do at running back?
I don't know what the situation is, Bobby, when we start to look at the
Next year.
yeah, like the cap with the cap situation stuff. Are they going to need Zeke's money? Are they going to be able to do it? Are you going to have to take a huge cap hit? I think that they've kind of figured out things about what they can do with Zeke. Now, can you do things with Zeke and then go get another guy? I really like what Malik Davis has brought to this crew. I
Yeah.
really, really, really do like what he's brought to this crew. And that it's a good combination that they got. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what money they're going to need. Are they going to need money? Are they going to be willing to take cap hits?
I believe as of right now they are dead last in 2023 cap space right now.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
they are going to have to flip some switches.
Yeah, and they've got what 19 guys that are going to be free agents or something like that.
Yeah, and you've got CeeDee Lamb's deal coming up. You've
Oh,
got
God.
a Trayvon Diggs deal coming up. So
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
It is. Next question here from one of our loyal listeners, Dean Julia.
All right, wait a minute now. What does Dean Julia give you to every week you ask a question from Dean Julia?
Wonderful questions, outside the box questions, because that's the thing is that like we'll get a lot of Odell questions.
I see like a million. I see a million questions from people. I see a million questions.
I know, and that's the thing though is that we get generally like we got like just now when I was looking through. There was a lot of questions about just the corners. Like it was the stuff.
I could say we've probably done one broadcast every week where Dean Julia has got a question in there.
Are you not a Dean Julia fan, Brian?
I like Dean Julia. I'm just saying though, it seems like, and he asks good questions, but I know there's a lot of other good questions in there too. I'm just kind of making an observation.
All right. I got.
What's his question?
Loud and clear. Do you think there are too many predetermined throws early in the games? It feels like a lot is forced to Schultz when he really isn't open. I don't think there's anything forced to Schultz. I think that's a factor of he trusts Dalton Schultz and he trusts CeeDee Lamb more than he trusts other guys. So it looks forced because he believes he can do things with them that he can't do with other guys on the team.
I think it's a good way to get the quarterback started. I know Brett Favre, when he was with Mark Chimera, the pass was called 50X spot. And it was that pass was a way to get Favre into the game where it wasn't an overthrow or trying to force the ball into somebody. It was a simple throw. You get the nerves calmed down. There's nothing wrong with throwing the ball to Schultz. I don't think it's forced. I think Dalton Schultz has proven though he can make plays for you. So I don't see that as a forced call at all.
Last one here from Playballer DC. Brian, what do you think the chances are we can keep Dan Quinn next year?
I don't know. There's a lot of teams. Dan Quinn's contract is almost like he's being paid like he's a NFL head coach, the compensation. I know Dan Quinn's very happy about being here, but there's only 32 of these jobs. I say that all the time. I mean, if Dan Quinn has been a coach, matter of fact, they're a bad half away at the Super Bowl from all probably still having head coaching jobs. That whole situation, probably still be in Atlanta. Probably wouldn't have fired a Super Bowl winning coach. But to me, I feel like that if you look at how Dan Quinn handles players and what he's learned and how he just comes off as very polished. He comes off as a guy that has an understanding of what he wants with his team, and he's a really good evaluator. Him and Will McClay do a lot of work together, shoulder to shoulder. I think if I'm a guy, I'm a general manager, I go and I try and interview him. But a lot of these teams that they're having new coaches or head coaches probably don't have a quarterback, and they're probably going to have to go evaluate a quarterback, and they're probably going to have to do it in a way like, okay, as an offensive coordinator, as a head coach, offensive coordinator, tell me the type of quarterback you want to play with. And that's why these defensive coaches are probably not going to get as much looks as we've seen in the past. Some defensive coordinators have gotten some opportunities. Matt Eberflus in Chicago, but that's after a run of having an offensive coach there. So, we'll see how it does. I hope they can keep him, but I know Dan Quinn wants to be a head coach in the NFL.
Yeah, and I know there's well, he wants to be a head coach in the NFL. I do, like you say, I do know he's really happy being here. And I think that it's not just going to be any job. I don't think that would pull him away. I think there are certain jobs that he would definitely leave for. But I think
in Denver they'd like to have him right now. I mean,
I think
Yeah, as well as they're playing on defense, that Dan Quinn could have done great things like that defense is right now, and they would have figured out the offensive the part of that football team.
Yeah,
I think,
absolutely.
yeah,
And I think if Denver were to come open this offseason, I think that is a job that he would
absolutely,
absolutely be
yeah,
interested in. And so
yeah,
that would be one of them. But it is, and I'll tell you this: the other thing here, even though it's different sides of the ball, your quarterback loves the guy. Your
yeah,
quarterback is very, very high on that guy. And
yeah.
there's a lot of people on the other side. There's nobody who dislikes Dan Quinn in that building.
I think if something, yeah, I think if all of a sudden you have a collapse in the playoffs and it looks really, really bad, and all of a sudden Jerry Jones is impatient with with Mike McCarthy, I think that you would get Steven and Will McClay pushing really hard to bring Dan Quinn on as the head coach. And because he is really, really good on personnel, he lets those guys do their job. You bring somebody in here like Sean Payton, who is going to want to run personnel. That's a little bit harder task on scouts. It's a little bit harder task on Will, and a harder task on Stephen Jones.
That does it for us here on the Love of the Star podcast. We will be back with you guys again later this week, hopefully with a resolution finally on Odell Beckham, so we don't have to talk about it until then.
Hey,
Yes, yes.
And Dean Julia, I love you, man. I'm just having fun. I'm just having fun with Bobby. Please
He's
don't
not,
take.
Dean. That's not about you. He's criticizing my. He's criticizing my process.
I just feel like there's a lot of folks that ask great questions. Dean, you're one of them. But I'm busting Bobby's balls right now because he's being lazy about getting these questions.
And I deserve it. I deserve my balls busted from time to time. We will talk to you guys again later this week.